back to, by the way, it's one interesting point. The Rebbe instituted something to speak what's called Divrei Kavushim, what speaks about, words of like, not admonishment, but this awakening words on a fast day. So before we go back to the halacha, there's something very interesting the Rebbe said on Living Torah this Saturday night, this Mitzvah Shabbos. The Rebbe said that when Melech Bavel, Nebuchadnezzar, what happened at Asar B'Tevis was the king Nebuchadnezzar made a siege around the city for 3 years. And nobody was allowed to go into the city, nobody was allowed to come out of the city, and eventually, later on Shivasa B'Tammuz, they broke through the wall of the city, and then Tisha B'Av, they destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. So, there's an interesting opinion in the Beis Yosef brings down from the Avod Raham. The Avod Raham writes that Asar B'Tevis is so strict that if it would fall out on Shabbos, which according to our calendar, it can never fall out on Shabbos, it can fall out on Friday, but Asar B'Tevis can never fall out on Shabbos. But if it would fall out on Shabbos, you would even fast on Shabbos. Why? Because by Asar B'Tevis, the pasuk says, Ba'etzem hayom hazeh, and by Yom Kippur it says, Ba'etzem hayom hazeh, that the Gemara learns out, this day, meaning this day, no matter when it is. The pearl, it's not practical because according to our calendar, it should never come out. But what happened is like this. What's the good of everything? That everything bad has basically a good side to it. So the Rebbe said by him making a wall around a siege around the city for 3 years, he basically forced, as the pasuk says, nobody went into the city, nobody went out of the city, which forced the inhabitants of the city to be united. Nobody's going out, nobody's coming in. You're forced, like if you're forced to live with somebody, you might as well make peace with them. So the Rebbe said what brought out, and Asar B'Tevis, the positive aspect of it was, there's a tremendous achdus in the city of Yerushalayim, and Yerushalayim therefore is Yerushalayim, the complete level of fear. So Asar B'Tevis in a positive way is bringing out the achdus, the unity of Bnei Yisrael, and the oneness of Klal Yisrael, in a way of Yerushalayim, that they're all complete in the level of fear of Hashem. Just time for Asar B'Tevis. Okay.
But did it fall on Friday?
What?
Did you have it happen that fall on Friday?
Sure. Not long ago it fell out on Friday, so you fast and you break your fast on Kiddush, Friday night. Like this, you don't make a fast on Friday. Like for instance, if Purim is Sunday, so Tainus Esther should be the day before, it should be on Shabbos. But you don't make it on Shabbos, because you don't fast on Shabbos. Why don't they make it Friday? Because you don't make fasts on Friday. If you're pushing something off already, so therefore it becomes Thursday. The only fast that could fall out according to our calendar, same thing with Tainus B'Chayrim. If Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos, so you don't fast, so you fast Thursday before. Tisha B'Av also they can never fall on Friday. You fall on Shabbos, but you push it off after. You don't push it off before. Purim what? Purim can be on Friday.
Yeah, but not Shabbos.
Not our Purim. In Eretz Yisrael, when our Purim is Friday, then Yerushalayim celebrates Purim on Shabbos. Therefore, if you look at Israeli Sidurim, even the Chabad ones, when you see the tefillah of Shachris and Musaf and Shabbos, they'll have Al Anisim for Purim. Now, Bayas it can never be, but in Eretz Yisrael, in Yerushalayim, it could be, Purim could be on Shabbos, so they have Al Anisim. Anyway, coming back to this. So the guy that gets the Aliyah and the Torah reader are not supposed to lean on anything. Because you're supposed to have fear and awe, like Torah was given with fear and awe, and when you lay in the Torah, you get an Aliyah, it's like the same fear and awe that you had at the time the Torah was given. If somebody is weak, you can lean a little bit. But ideally, you're supposed to stand erect. Now, there's another interesting din. Anytime you lean on something, that if they would pull the thing away, you'd fall down, that's not called standing. Anytime the Torah says you have to stand, and you have to do something, and you lean on something, if it's just a little leaning like this, doesn't matter. But if they would pull the table, the chair, the stander away, you'd fall down. That's called, in fact, the Mendel Futterfass, he used to tell the story. He once was a witness on a get that the Rebbe's father wrote for somebody. And the Rebbe's father wrote Gittin. So the Mendel Futterfass was once one of the witnesses, and he was just. Now the din is when a witness testifies, the Torah says va'amdu shnei anashim. Therefore, according to halacha, biblical halacha, witnesses had to stand. Now they're lenient, whatever, but in formal document like a get, where the witness had to sign as a witness, and he had to. So he was once like touching the table. He said. He was once like touching the Rebbe's father screamed at him in a gentle way, "Don't lean on it, because you're not allowed to lean, because that's not called standing halachically." Okay, so same like Shmoneh, if you have to stand, you're not allowed to lean like this on the table, and unless God forbid a person's sick. Okay, now they say Baruch Hashem Amveirot, the people answer. Okay. The reason why you have people standing next to the Balkari, it says, because when Torah was given to Moshe Rabbeinu was the agent. When Moshe Rabbeinu was the agent, the broker for Torah, it's the same thing. When we have a Torah reading of this, you have a broker, so to speak, to stand there also. Okay. Now there's a very important din.
The child can stand there?
Usually you try to have a bar mitzvah, no. But if there's nobody else, you have a kid there.
So about when Moshe Rabbeinu was fighting Amalek, they were fighting Amalek and he was...
That had to do with a fast day, not so much Torah reading. That's the concept of a fast day. Now once the person begins reading the Torah, once the Balkari starts reading the Torah, it's forbidden to talk, even in Torah, even between aliyahs, ben gavra legavra between aliyahs, it's forbidden to talk, even divrei Torah. That's what Halachos says, and by the way, nobody argues on this. One of few dinim nobody argue on. But this is a din everybody agrees on, that once the Sefer Torah, obviously if you have to get a name to an aliyah or something like that, that's a different story, but stam to talk even divrei Torah is forbidden, to talk between person, even between person and person. And it's forbidden to go out of the shul during Torah reading because it looks like you don't care about it. It's not important to you. So it's disrespectful to the Torah. But if the Torah is rolled and covered, for a great, great need, you're allowed to walk out. Unless you have to go to the washroom or whatever it is, then you're allowed to go out. If there's a kohen in the shul, technically you have to call him first. Because Sevi Kedashti, it's a pasuk. Even if the kohen is an illiterate, and there's another person who's a Talmud Chacham, even if the Talmud Chacham is a mamzer, over there, Talmud Chacham halachically comes before a kohen. But the pearl the minig in halacha today is clear. Halacha says today, even if the non-kohen is a Talmud Chacham, and the kohen is a complete illiterate, the kohen comes first. But if he defiles laws of a kohen, which means he goes to cemeteries, all these things, then he's not allowed to be called first as a kohen, because he doesn't have. He gave up. He can't give up the status of a kohen. Remember, there was a rabbi in Chicago. His last name was whatever. Basically, meant he was a kohen. But he wasn't that religious, and for rabbis in such shuls, funerals are a big business. If you have an older congregation, you get a few $100 per funeral. In those days, it was big business. So he officially gave up his kahuna. He said, I'm not a kohen anymore. But obviously a kohen is still a kohen. But if he one that defiles the uniqueness of dinim of a kohen, so then you can't give him an aliyah. It's a whole question, in fact, a kohen who's a doctor that learns medicine. It's a whole issue in halacha with this, with a kohen being a doctor. Because in the training, in the school, in the residency, and everything, they're dealing with dead people. I mean, a lot of, in the training of a doctor, they learn on dead bodies. Corpses, whatever. So the shaila is, how can he become tummy? It's a dead person. Even if it's a guy, you can't touch it. It's not a problem being in the same tent with a dead goy body. A Jewish body is not allowed to be in the same tent, even under the same covering. But if it's a non-Jew, then technically he could be in the same temple, but he can't touch it. They're touching the whatever it is, all these cadavers. That's what it's called. Cadaver. They're touching it. It's a big problem. So they go into a whole shaila over here. And he's forced to. So some opinions say it's called shaygig. He didn't really know the severity of it. He thinks he's forced to do it. He has no choice. But it's a big shaila in halacha, by the way, of a kohen. Not that there's no kohenim doctors today, but I'm just saying in halacha it's a very big problematic issue of a kohen becoming a doctor, not because in his practice, but because in the training to become a doctor, he's dealing with dead people.
What if a Kohen wants to have Haftorah?
Huh?
Haftorah.
Can a kohen be called to Haftarah? Yeah, on Shabbos, on Yom Tov, not during the week, not like today.
Right.
A kohen cannot get any other aliyah except kohen. And Achron, like we said. What?
A coin that's mechal in his own kibuna,
No.
he could be called as a Yisrael.
A kohen that's mechalo, for instance, if a kohen marries a woman he's not allowed to marry, so then he loses the kohen status. He has a status like a regular Yisrael. Meaning like this, he still can't go to cemeteries. He still cannot become tamei. The uniqueness of the kedusha of a kohen, that you give him everything first, that he can have an aliyah like a regular Yisrael, not like a Levi, but like a Yisrael.
So it's called Chaim HaKohen.
No, he's not called kohen. He's not called kohen, huh?
He's not a Kohen anymore?
He's a kohen. I said that he can't go to cemeteries. He can't do things that kohenim are forbidden to do, but he doesn't have the unique rights of a kohen to be called first.
But if the Kohen touches us and we're already in the Taneh, doesn't become Taneh?
No, a kohen cannot come in touch with the dead body itself.
But if in the same room is okay?
Same room as a dead body?
Yeah.
No, not if it's under the same roof, because then it's called oil 10.
Nowadays, everybody is coming all the time.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they can deal with the dead body directly. We're all tamei, yes. We're all tamei mess, yes. We're all going to need a long line for the Par Aduma when Mashiach comes. It'll be a long line, but the kohen still cannot become tamei from a corpse itself.
What if a Kohen divorces a divorcee? So he was married to a divorcee and he divorces her.
If a kohen was married to a divorcee or to a woman he wouldn't be allowed to marry,
Yeah.
and then he divorces her, and in Halacha it says the following: he makes a neder al das rabim, meaning he makes, so to speak, he makes a vow, a public vow that can never be annulled, that he's never going to do it again. Then he did tshuva, and then he would be allowed to do it. But as long as he's married to that woman that he's not allowed to be married to, then he doesn't have the status of a kohen. And even if he divorces, just divorce it because he got into a fight and he'll do it again. So then he still loses the status even though he's divorced. But unless he makes a neder, like a public neder, so to speak, that he'll never do it again. What?
What about a non-religious Kohen at all, who is married to a goy, but he's a Tinoch Shenishba? Can he be called up for a Kohen?
No.
Even a Tinoch Shenishba?
No. No. It's not a question but it's a question he doesn't have that status of kedusha to.
But if he's not married to a Goy, but he does go to the cemetery, he would help.
No, I said you don't hear. I said clearly if he goes to cemeteries and this, you can't call him up as a kohen.
So he doesn't go.
Open out for Kohen.
Any Kohen that walks in there would be called into the Torah.
What?
Any Kohen that walks in here would get an aliyah as a Kohen.
Well, if I know for sure he goes to cemeteries, I don't give him an aliyah. Huh? I don't. The guy that I know goes to cemeteries, I don't give a kohen aliyah to.
Not as a Kohen, but how about as a third element?
Yeah, you can get a regular Yisrael.
So what would you call him?
To call him by his name.
Yamod Yitzchok ben Avram. I don't
But
know.
you will never get the first one, even if there's no other Kohen.
Even if there's no other kohenim in the room, he doesn't have the status of a kohen for this.
Isn't that embarrassing?
Is that embarrassing in public lineage?
When people know that he was born a Kohen.
1 minute. The guy did something he wasn't allowed to do. He wasn't embarrassed. Now we should be embarrassed that he did something that, huh?
What if he makes a public vow never to go to a cemetery again?
Oh, see that already. He doesn't have. If he, he did tshuva and he doesn't. He does over there. He doesn't have to make a public vow. As long as the guy stopped going to cemeteries and he doesn't go anymore. No matter what, he won't go anymore. Then he recreates the status of a kohen. Then he did tshuva. Then he did.
Like people that don't know about Shabbat. That are not.
So therefore, but that has nothing to do with the status of the rights and the honor and dignity that a kohen has. Okay.